What up, y'all? It's the Real Ball Watcher, and I'm back with another video. I feel like this one might be a little long one, but if you like it, like, comment, sub, let me know what you think. Let me know who you want to see next. Share the video, do all of the YouTube stuff. Let's go ahead and get into it. Keon Coleman. Let's get into it. Keon Coleman stats. I want to preface this with his first 2 years he was at Michigan State, transferred to Florida State. Terrible quarterback play at Michigan State. Y'all know I think lack of production is a kind of a red flag of weakness, but terrible quarterback play at Michigan State. Goes to Florida State. His quarterback gets injured for the last maybe 3-4 games. But also the way he was just being used, I don't necessarily like the way he was being used. Somebody tracked it. Shout out Theo on TikTok. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He only ran slants. Matter of fact, let's say that for a different time. Let's get into his actual stats. We'll talk about that later on. 10 games played first year. I think he only started 4. 7 catches, 50 yards, 1 touchdown. True freshman year, we're not knocking him. Next year, 12 games played, 58 catches, 798 yards, 7 tutties. Had a really, really good year. I ain't gonna lie, he kind of semi-broke out a little bit. He was playing next to Jaden Reed. Great, played great. 2023 transfers to Florida State, 50 catches, 658 yards, 11 tutties. His tutties went up, everything else went down. So he never had the true 1,100 plus yard season, 1,000 yard season, none of that stuff. But there are plenty of reasons, like I said before. The way he was being used, the quarterback play that he had really in both years, because after the Jordan Travis got hurt, and then at Michigan State, the quarterback play was really bad. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the film. Now, this might be a long video. This might be a doozy, because when I'm watching this film, he just showed me so much, and I just have a lot to talk about, and I had a lot of clips. And the first thing that you notice is he's a catch in traffic specialist. Like, his CIT on Madden is at the very least a 97. Once you get the 50 out of 50 chem or whatever chem you need, your coach boost on Mutt, he's gonna have a 99, maybe 100, because he's insane when it comes to catching in traffic. It doesn't matter if you're asking him to get in the red zone, box out a receiver and catch it over his shoulder, kind of like on the back shoulder type thing, in the breadbasket. It don't matter if you're throwing him a fade and he's kind of tracking under the ball and catching it over his shoulder. It doesn't matter if he's just straight up face up with the receiver. You throwing the ball, he needs to either high point it and grab it and pull it down, or if he's coming across on a dig and he kind of moves the guy off his spot and catches through his hands. Catching traffic specialist. He's just amazing at catching the ball in traffic. He's a jump ball threat. He's a deep threat because of that catching traffic ability. Kind of how we talked about, what was it, 2 weeks ago? We talked about the guy, Xavier Leggett. He is that, but times 5. When I talked about his downfield jump ball ability, he's that, but times 5, because he's actually 6'3", 6'4". Pretty sure they lied. So he's at least 6'2", because I think XL came in at 6 foot at the Senior Bowl. But he's actually 6'3", 6'4". He looks it. He's still that physical specimen. He's lanky, pause. He's a catch and traffic specialist. Throw it up to him. He has the ability to high point the ball, pull it down over his shoulder, all that stuff. Next point I want to get into, what kind of plays into this, his catch radius is crazy. His catch radius is crazy, and I probably should have put it as a point, but he is really good at tracking the ball. I mean, when you look at his timing, whenever he needs to jump up and go get the ball, when you look at how he's able to extend outside his frame, whether it's behind him, whether it's kind of stretching out, reaching his arms over his head, catching it through somebody, whether it's not necessarily a diving catch, but a catch going to the ground, inaccurate pass, one hand going up outside his frame, taking a hit. We all see that in one highlight when they was playing Syracuse. I don't have it up here, but his catch radius and his ball tracking ability is maybe the best in the class. Maybe. I'm not ready to jump out the window and say yes, but he easily has the best combination of catching traffic and catch radius and ball tracking in his class. When you put all 3 of those together, he's just insane when it comes to that point of the game. I mean, there is no improvement of it. I know his numbers didn't look as good. I want to say he had a 36% catching traffic success or something like that. I will say a lot of the passes that he got were inaccurate in those situations from Jordan Travis, not to diss him or anything, but they weren't as accurate. and he wasn't put in a position where it's like, all right, I'm in a one-on-one situation, I can just go up and get this. A lot of times it was a second safety there. A lot of the times it was a second safety coming to help, and the ball is already inaccurate, or the ball was kind of thrown outside his frame, and he really have to make a extraordinary play to make it. When you look at him at Michigan State, where he had somebody with Jaden Reed who had a little more speed and shiftiness, kind of take the defensive attention away, because I think it was a really redundantness at FSU with Johnny Wilson and him. He was able to get more one-on-ones. He had a 60% success rate on catches in contested catch scenario. I want to say 66%, but let me not dwell on this too much. Really, really good. The efficiency numbers aren't there this year, but when you watch the tape, you see it's not him. He's really, really good. He's probably the best in the class with that combination. Like I said, also has really strong hands. I talked about when he goes up, grabs the ball out of the air, absorbs a hit, or even when he doesn't go up, he's taking a little curl or a comeback route, and he gets hit while he's doing it, or somebody try to strip the ball out. Really, really strong hands. Whenever somebody has his hands in between his gloves when he's catching the ball, he's still able to rip the ball away from those guys, and kind of has a vice grip with his hands. Really, really, really strong hands. He's just a really good, when it comes to that, quintessential old school receiver, Calvin Johnson's, Randy Moss, those old school. Like nowadays we care more about separation, route running, things like that, speed. But back in the day, when every receiver needed to be 6'2" and up, 6'4", 6'5", had to have a little bit, at least 4'5", 4'6", 4'4" speed, and be able to just go jump over a guy and take the ball from him if you give him a chance. He fits that mold perfectly. Like, it's not many of those guys left, your T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, somewhat, Mike Evans, guys like that. But he fits that mold great. Just really strong hands. Moving on. I'm sorry. I'm glazing. Moving on. Also, you think he's just kind of this jump ball, stronghold, big body guy. Not necessarily. He's a yak threat. He's creative once he catches the ball. When I like to see how good you'll be a yak is, how can you make guys miss in a phone booth? He catches the ball. He doesn't have as much space to get away from the guy. He's still able to make a miss. He catches the ball in space. He's able to make a guy miss, make another guy miss. I mean, we've seen the slant against LSU. He took it the distance. I mean, look at him. He returned punts for FSU. He had a punt return for a touchdown, or maybe a couple of them. I don't know. But I know for sure I remember seeing one or two of them that he had return for a touchdown. But the fact that he's back there at 6'4", 215, 216, almost 220 at punt returner and doing it successfully, that just speaks to the creativity he has in making guys miss, his yak ability, and how that his breaking tackle abilities, because he run through arm tackles. If you're not going to be able to wrap him up and hit him a little good, he's going to be able to run through that arm tackle. He is a real yak threat at the next level. Next thing I want to talk about is he uses his frame to beat smaller DBs. We talked about this with Xavier Leggett, how some guys are big but don't play big. Guys like, not to diss Panthers fans, we know Devin Funchess sometimes, but guys that play big or that are big but don't play big, he will run up to you, kind of get in your blind spot, shift you away. He'll run up to you, kind of give you a little nudge at the top of his route, kind of like Mike Evans does, and break off that route, get the catch. He uses his frame to be smaller DBs, and we see him whenever he's going up to box guys out and get these jump balls and things like that. That's why he's such a good jump ball specialist. But he uses to win and get separation within routes, and I really like to see that. He's not just, oh, I'm bigger than this guy, I'm taller than this guy, I'm just going to jump over him. No, he'll use that to get separation and beat guys in his routes, kind of like a Mike Evans does. Really, really good at that, and I think that's really good for his upside. Also, which we're talking about upside, he has upside as a route runner. Now, he's not necessarily the quick twitch, explosive side-to-side guy or really, really fast burner guy, but he shows a little bit of nuance in his route running where he's kind of playing into the DB's leverage. He's playing into the DB's blind spots. I talked about how he's using his strength and his size to kind of get separation within his route. He is creative as a yak threat, so there is a little bit of nimbleness and kind of agility that he can use to develop as a route runner. He's not very nuanced, he's not very refined, he's not a technician, but he has that upside. I mean, he has that. When you look at Mike Evans, he's not the fastest guy, but he's really good technically when it comes to deep threats. He's able to beat guys and then stack them and beat them over top. Whenever he gets that to his repertoire, he's going to be really, really good as a deep threat, not just as a jump ball guy, but as somebody who can beat a guy over top. But when you also look at Mike Evans, the thing that he does to usually beat those guys that are playing off coverage, he has this hezzy move where he gets up to you hezzy and go. Hezzy, go this way. Kind of like a three-way release. He has that in his repertoire. He's used that before. He also has these really small, quick bursts, like where he's stationary and then burst out of it. And he's able to get there into a spot that I think will be really, really good for his route running when it comes to maybe settling down and bursting out or hitting double moves, things like that. He has upside as a route runner. He's also working with Delfonte Diamond, or however you say his name. Sorry if I said it wrong. Guys who work with guys like Tank Dell, CeeDee Lamb, really, really good route running receivers. He's working with him, I want to say almost 2 years ago from what I've seen. So he has that upside, and he's trying to get that upside to reach the potential that he really can be at, which is insane, actually. These last 3 points was kind of just not really film attached or anything, but red zone monster. We talked about his jump, his catch and traffic expertise, talk about his strong hands, his catch radius, how he uses his frame to beat smaller DBs. All that goes into he's a red zone monster. Like Theo also used this in his video. Where only reason I really watched the video for the efficiency stats, because I had to remind myself of the catch and traffic success. But he talked about how since there was a redundance between Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman and their skill sets and how they win, they kind of used from 20 to 20. It was Johnny Wilson. Let's give him jump balls. Let's give him digs. Let's give him slants. Let's give him comebacks and throw him those contested catches, or, get him the ball. And then once they got into the 20 or the red zone area, that's when it was Keon Coleman's time to shine. That's when he was boxing guys out, kind of beating them on phase, beating them on digs, and jumping through guys or jumping over guys. He's a red zone monster. Basically, he's going to be really, really good at the next level. That's why he had 11 touchdowns this year. He was also really good at MSU when they were using him in the red zone, things like that. Since Jaden Reed was more the 20 to 20 guy, since he's a lot faster, better route runner, more explosive cat. And then in the red zone, they used the bigger body guy, Keon Coleman. He has success there also. Next, multifaceted athlete. I talked about how he returned punts at his size. He was also a basketball player, not just a basketball player in general, but at Michigan State. He played under Tom Izzo. He got in the game. He scored a couple points. I think he scored like 7 points in his career or something like that. But he scored in multiple games. Hit a three. He was a wing. He was a forward. He was playing, I don't know if it was power forward or small forward, but he played on the wing. He hit a three. Pretty sure he can dunk. I'm like, he's an athletic, multifaceted athlete. That's why he was able to return punts, but also play bigger receiver. That's why he has that yak threat ability and able to play basketball at the same time. He's an athlete. You're going to be able to use him in a lot of different ways, I think. And last point, he's only 20 years old. Like, he's going to be 20 years old at the draft. Pretty sure he'll probably only be 21 or coming up on 21 week 1 or once you go into training camp. He's a moldable ball of clay. That's not his player build, but I've said that I forgot who it was. He's a moldable ball of clay. He still has the potential to get better at a lot of things and improve at a lot of things and refine some of the things he's already great at. So his upside is through the roof. It's just, does your staff have development to develop that guy and the patience to wait on that guy? Because maybe he's not going to be a guy that gets into the league and goes crazy. Maybe it takes him a Nico Collins route 3-4 years, but he has that upside and it's through the roof. But let's get into the stuff that's not his game. Let's stop glazing. Now, like I said, when I was watching this, I had so many clips and I just had so much to say and so many bullet points. I had to kind of condense it and take some out, and kind of, put something together. But when I'm watching stuff that's not necessarily his game and look for his weaknesses, it wasn't a lot to say. Like, it's not a lot to say. But there is some stuff, but it's not a lot to say. But number one thing, I know I said that production isn't necessarily a what should I say? It's usually a red flag, but I'm kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt in this scenario. He still is a traits-based prospect that needs time to develop. A lot of his allure is not necessarily he's putting this on tape, but he's showing the flashes that it could be this, that he could develop into this. He maybe will develop into this. He can do this also. He can also do this if you need him to. He just didn't put a lot of it on film to where it's, oh, he has that in his game. He's ready to do that in his game. Talked about his route running, stuff like that. Just more refinement, and it might need time. You have to be patient and give him the time to develop. But when we talk about those other things that he needs a little bit of refinement with, he lacks separation. He's just not a great separator, and that's, you can see it this year with FSU. he had 36% or 40% of his targets being contested catches. Now, he only had 20 or 18% at MSU, but I mean, a lot of the lure of him is being a jump ball guy and able to take it out of guys, hands and keep it for himself. But he doesn't create a lot of separation. So if you're in an offense that you kind of rely on that route running and guys getting open and hitting guys in stride when they're open in space, he may not be the guy for you. But if you're in an offense like Panthers, a Dave Canales offense where it's a West Coast, hey, we're going to get the ball out quick. We need guys who's able to have a really good catch radius, extend out of the frame, make plays once they get the ball in their hand, or maybe make difficult catches. He's that type of guy. He's that quintessential X receiver, that old school X receiver. But he does lack separation, and that may hurt him and take him off boards for a lot of teams, or move him down boards, I should say, not take him off, because he's just too good to be off boards. But yeah, he needs to improve on creating more separation on things like underneath and getting his release package better, stuff like that. Next thing I want to talk about, he's a strider, not a sprinter. And this is maybe nitpicky for some, but this is important to point out. He's not a burner. He's not going to run away from guys. He is a long stepper who has really good speed for his size. And then once he's able to stack guys, like I said earlier, he's going to be a deep threat that, hey, you're going to be able to throw it over the top. Right now, he's a deep threat because, hey, he can jump and go take it from you if he needs to. But whenever he's able to kind of get more refinement as a route runner, learn how to, get better releases off the line, beat guys, and stack them so he can get over the top, he'll be much more of a deep threat that way. But he's not going to do it based off just speed with guys like his teammate Jaden Reed, who's really, really fast. He can just run by you. Xavier Worthy, he can just run by you. Brian Thomas can run by you. Malik Neighbors, run by you. Troy Franklin, he's not one of those guys. He's much more of a strider. He's not slow. That's why I say he's a strider, but he's not a sprinter. He has quick feet, but he isn't the fastest guy. Maybe he'll probably run like 4 or 5. If he runs any better than that, we're going to have a discussion for real. But he'll probably run like 4 or 5s, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's just a strider, not a sprinter. There's not much more I can say about that. But last point, he's not a great accelerator. There are plays where if you need him to get up to 60 quick, he's not going to be able to do that. Now, like I say, he's not slow, but his acceleration in short area, not talking about bursts like, hey, I can get going, but his acceleration where he make a guy miss, now he need to beat this guy to this angle. That's acceleration. Talked about over Roman Wilson, Xavier Worthy. He doesn't necessarily have that, but he's still not a slow guy. But he, it takes him a little minute to get up there. He's not a sports car when it comes to his speed. He's more of a muscle car, but one of those newer muscle cars that can get up there a little bit faster than they did back in the day. But that's all I really have for the stuff that's not his game, because he's not that bad of a player that where I'm like, oh, this is it. He's really good. And I was a person, if you follow me on Twitter, who was a little bit lower on him, kind of because of guys like Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funches, burned in the past from the Panthers, guys that can't create much separation, but also Devin Funch's case doesn't play big. I know he played big, but because of his efficiency numbers this year, I'm like, then thinking about Kelvin Benjamin, where it's like, yeah, one injury, now all your, athleticism is zapped away, but you can't be scared of things like that. And I think he has the ability to improve as a route runner and things like that, and he's not just going to be this guy who lacks separation his whole career. I also think that he was misused. I don't know. Let me touch on this point now before I forget, because I don't know if I said it earlier. Theo pulled up that he was only ran things where he can get the ball in space while he's already running and keep going. Things like drags, slants, digs, things that you want to get him the ball in space and let him use that yak ability. He only ran those routes 32 times at FSU this year. He was only targeted on those routes 7 times. He had 5 catches. One of those I showed you being that slant against LSU, and they just never did it again. I think they only ran 2 more slants with him the rest of the year. So it's just, I don't know. I think he has the ability to be much more than that whenever you sit down and watch the tape. So I think his stock falling was kind of overblown, and it's not fair to him. It's not really a good thing, or what can I say? It's not necessary. His stock shouldn't have been falling. I think his stock should be as high as ever, as it was at the start of the year when it was the first couple games. He's that good of a player. But let's get into his player build. Now today, we have built a prototypical X. I was going to put alpha receiver because he has that alpha mentality. Prototypical X, like I said before, just that old school big receiver who's still fast. And if you need to throw him up a jump ball and make him go get it, he'll go get it. Those Calvin Johnsons, those Randy Mosses, those Jerry Rices, Anquan Bolden. He was kind of a slot guy though. But those old school receivers, Muhsin Muhammad's. That's a really good comp. I should have put Moose as a comp. I ain't gonna lie. It was, oh wow, knocking the mic everywhere. It was a lot of comps I could have put for this guy, but prototypical X receiver. I think I talked about enough how he plays things like that to where you understand what it is. I don't gotta explain. Let's get into the shades up. It was a lot of comps. If he was to run, or if he was to be faster, his comp for me would have been Calvin Johnson, Megatron, because he's that great of a jump ball guy to where he would have double me on Madden immediately. Like he's that good of a jump ball guy. He's just so strong-handed and has such a great catch radius and such a good deep threat and able to contort his body. His timing is good. He reminds me of Calvin Johnson, and then I remember Calvin Johnson ran 4.3, so I'm like, can't use that. Muhsin Muhammad is a really, really good comp also. T. Higgins, another good comp when it comes to his catch radius, things like that. I put Mike Evans because he reminds me most of a route runner as Mike Evans, where he's able to kind of get up in the guy, shove him off, use that to get open. He uses that hezzy. He's not the fastest guy, but he's a strider, but he can still stack over top and be a deep ball threat. Now Mike Evans, I don't think is this insane jump ball threat, and I don't think he has as much surety of his hands because he has a lot of drops, and he's not as strong-handed as Keon Coleman is. But when it comes to the route running, that's who he reminds me most of, and that's the ceiling I can see him getting to, or maybe even higher, because I think he's a lot better after the catch than Mike Evans is, and underneath as a route runner when it comes to swiping hands away, getting releases, breaking off his routes. I think he could be a little bit better than him in that. So that would bring me to the next guy, Nico Collins. And another good guy that I'm gonna say a lot of names, but Nico Collins is the guy I got up here. Another good guy you can say is Michael Pittman. The way he uses his yak underneath, he kind of get him on digs, get him on slants. He's able to run through a tackle, beat a guy at an angle, just outrun guys with his strides, with his long strides, things like that. Because Nico Collins is like 6'3" also, and able to be a deep threat downfield. I think he might have that also, that Nico Collins development path. Now I think he'll be a little bit better than Nico Collins because he's a lot more hyped up. They'll spend higher draft capital on him. He'll be able to get into the rotation a lot quicker than Nico Collins was and be a focal point of the offense. But I still think it might take him 2, maybe 3 years to really burst onto the scene and come into his own and have that breakout year. And the last shades of, y'all know I use this as his floor, Cortland Sutton. I mean, the way Cortland Sutton can go up and jump through guys, jump over guys, kind of box guys out, make these insane catches. This is what his catching ability reminds me of today. Cortland Sutton, T. Higgins-esque contested catcher. That's his floor. I mean, that's a 700 to 1,000 yard receiver. That's his floor. That just speaks to how highly I am on Keon Coleman. And I'm here to apologize because I wasn't familiar with your game, even though I was. Because I watched a lot of Jaden Reed last year. Love Jaden Reed. And Keon Coleman was popping on the field. I'm like, dang, who is this dude making this crazy catch? So I was a little bit familiar with his game, but the broadcast perspective and, Florida State kind of whitewashed me. I was a little confused, but sitting down and reviewing his tape from Michigan State, reminding myself of those moments, looking at his efficiency from Michigan State, comparing it to Florida State, and then watching his Florida State tape, I'm like, yeah, he's going to be insane. I'm not going to say if he's top 5 receivers. I'm not going to say where exactly because I have a list coming out eventually, but he is up there. He's really, really good. I don't see him being a bad player, but that's all I really got for y'all. If you like the video, subscribe, please share it, and comment who you want to see next. Comment what you think about Keon Coleman, what you think about the video. Florida State fans, kill me about y'all not using him correctly, all that, whatever. But it's been a real ball watcher. Hopefully this isn't too long. I feel like it is. I can't see the timer, but it's the real ball watcher. Put up your binoculars. I'll see y'all next week.